It's the week after Thanksgiving, and the top youth football players from across the country and across the globe are headed to Walt Disney World. And that can mean just one thing. It's time for the 2012 Pop Warner Super Bowl Championships. Hi, everybody. I'm Mike Kane. It's great to be here with you for this kickoff coverage for the 56th annual Pop Warner Super Bowl, 56th edition of this granddaddy of them all in youth sports. And to help us navigate through everything that is Pop Warner, it's my pleasure to welcome my broadcast partner, the Director of Media Relations for Pop Warner Little Scholars, Mr. Josh Pruce. Now, Josh, NCAA basketball has their selection Sunday, and I guess, Pop Warner, well, you have Touchdown Tuesday, let's call it.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a lot of nervous teams out there right now. 64 teams, 64 coaches, ready to find out their fate today. Again, this draw is completely random. Sometimes people think it's seeded. No, it's a completely random draw, which should make it a kind of an interesting draw. It's ready to go, and let's find out where each of the teams play.
Well, let's take a look at today's brackets in the Junior Pee Wee Division II. Our first game, you see it there in red. That means it's going to be broadcast live on ESPN3. It's Saturday, December 1st. The Michigan City Wolves, they're going to face off against the Bedford Junior Bulldogs from New Hampshire. Second game, the Stanley Blue Devils out of North Carolina. They're going to face off the team who's probably traveled the farthest all the way from the great state of Hawaii, the Manoa Peniolas.
And one thing that kind of helps them this year is this game used to be played a little bit earlier in the day. Now it's 11 o'clock. Still an early game for them, but now it'll be 5 o'clock their time or 6 o'clock in the morning. Got to get that clock adjusted, but we tried to move it, help those West Coast teams out a little bit this year.
Well, they're going to be fighting the jet lag, so I'm sure they appreciate it. Team who didn't have to travel as far, but they come ready to play from Texas, the Arlington Thunder. They're going to face off against the Enon Eagles out of Pennsylvania. And then rounding out this bracket from California, the Sunnyvale Knights. They're going to face off from a team right here in Florida, the Tukwolasi Red Raiders. Moving over to the Pee Wee division, staying in Division II, but the Pee Wees, again, the red game that's broadcast live at 1 p.m., the Evergreen Bulldogs, all the way from Washington. They're going to face off against the Loveland Titans from Colorado. In our second game, the Gilbert Chandler Spurs from Arizona. They're facing off against the South Lake Red Devils from Indiana. Then our third game, the Valley Stallions from New York. They're facing off against the West Haven Seahawks, another team from Connecticut. A lot of good talent up there in the Northeast. And then rounding out the Pee Wee division, the Palmetto Bay Broncos. We saw a lot of that club last year from right here in Florida. They're going to be facing off against the North Raleigh Bulldogs, another team from North Carolina. Moving on to the Junior Midgets. Again, our televised game, 4 p.m. Eastern. Redondo Beach Seahawks from California. They're facing off against the Lenape Valley Indians coming from Pennsylvania. Second game, the Gary Steelers from Indiana. They're going to face off against the West Volusia Wolves from here in Florida.
Yeah, and a close matchup. So they're real close to the complex. I expect a lot of fans out. That's going to be a tough game for Gary with almost a home crowd atmosphere for West Volusia.
Moving on to our third game, the West Haven Seahawks from Connecticut. They're going to face off against the Coastal Cowboys from North Carolina. And then rounding out the Junior Midgets, the Oak Cliff Titans from the great state of Texas. They're going to face off against the Andrew Hill Red Raiders from California. Staying in Division II, but moving over to the midget age bracket. Again, our televised game, you see there in red, the Palm Bay Rockets from right here in Florida. They're going to face off against the North Raleigh Bulldogs from North Carolina. But not only that game is going to be available on ESPN3, we're going to have cut-ins and highlights from all these games all week long. So be sure and tune in to ESPN3's live coverage. In our second game, midget division, the Ypsilanti Panthers from the Great Lakes state of Michigan. They're going to face off against the West Lynn Rams from Massachusetts. In the third game spot, the West Valley Falcons from California. They're going to face off against the Grand Snakes from Arizona.
And Arizona's had a lot of success in this championship in the last few years. We'll see if Grand, who it's their first time, can continue with that success.
And rounding out the midget division, the Enon Eagles from Pennsylvania. They're facing off against the Bryan Buccaneers from Texas. Here's a look at our broadcast schedule. Again, these games being broadcast live on ESPN3 Saturday, December 1st. Our live games, Michigan City Wolves. They're going to face off against the Bedford Junior Bulldogs at 11 a.m. It's going to be followed up at 1 p.m. with the Evergreen Bulldogs versus the Loveland Titans. Now, again, in addition to these games, we're going to have live cut-ins and highlights from all the games all day long, so be sure and tune in to ESPN3's coverage of the Pop Warner Super Bowl. Josh, break us down these games. Got a lot of new teams coming in, a lot of really good teams that we've seen before. Talk to us about what we can expect to see this week.
Well, in these two matchups in particular, Michigan City, they were great a couple years ago as a junior Pee Wee team. They weren't as strong last year as a Pee Wee team. Come back now, a new junior Pee Wee team, so you don't quite know what you're going to get. See if you have that magic that you had 2 years ago. Bedford, first time from a team in New Hampshire in a long time. Again, same with the second game. You got Evergreen Bulldogs, Loveland Titans. First time for either one of those teams to be here. First time for anybody to come from either one of those states to the Pop Warner Super Bowl. So whoever settles in first in a lot of cases can win those games, but getting the nerves out quickly is important.
How difficult is that for a club who it's their first time when none of the previous teams that have played before? I know it's new players each year, but a brand new club to Pop Warner Championships, how difficult is that?
I think a lot of it's just all the adjustments. You won just a week ago, trying to get everything. There's a lot of excitement. Everybody needs to take a deep breath and calm down. I'll say this, I think the kids always perform. It's coaches, everyone else that get a little nervous. Those cameras turn on, and you find that the players come out and give their best, and the coaches all of a sudden realize everything they're going to do is being scrutinized a little bit, so the nerves come on. So a good deep breath for each of those teams. That's the best suggestion you can have at this. Calm down and relax and enjoy yourself while you're here.
Well, speaking of the cameras coming on, we have some more games being broadcast. Saturday, December 1st, 4 p.m., Redondo Beach Seahawks. They're going to face off against the Lenape Valley Indians. Should be a great game. And then 6 p.m., under the lights, Palm Bay Rockets. They're facing off against the North Raleigh Bulldogs.
And again, Redondo Beach, first time here. One little tidbit about them, their head coach was actually a stunt double for Cuba Gooding Jr. in the movie Jerry Maguire, and they're going to have to show us the money if they plan on beating Lenape Valley. They were here last year. They lost to the eventual champion. A tough first-round game, but should be an exciting one. And in the Midgets, North Raleigh Bulldogs lost last year on what was maybe the most exciting play of the whole tournament, a last-second play with a long pass and then a dive in for a touchdown. North Raleigh gets a chance to avenge that loss right here on ESPN3 again on the night game.
Well, I owe you $5 because anytime you get a Cuba Gooding Jr. reference in the broadcast, so I owe you. I'll pay you afterwards. Talk to us about playing under the lights. Now, most of these kids, their games are on Saturday mornings, maybe Sunday mornings. Under the lights, live TV, ESPN3. How does that affect these young kids?
I think they just get excited for it. I think everyone gets excited for it. It's no different than if it's college or the NFL. You play that night game, it's something special. And for these kids, they may have only played one or two maybe throughout the season and nights. Now you get that chance. Now you're on ESPN3. So I think it gives them that chance all day to relax a little bit, go and bring their best to the table that evening.
Well, speaking of exciting broadcasts, football isn't the only thing going on here at ESPN Wide World of Sports Complex. We also have the Cheer and Dance Championships. All of this broadcast live on popwarner.com. You see the broadcast schedule there. It kicks off December 3rd at 8 a.m. with the Pee Wee Cheer, followed up all week with the Pee Wees, Junior Midgets, the overall dance championship, and then rounding it out on the 7th with the Midget Cheer. Great competition. If you haven't seen the Cheer and Dance, get over to popwarner.com. It's something to see. You know what else is something to see, Josh? More football. Let's talk Division I. Division I Junior Pee Wee. Again, our broadcast game, this will be December 2nd. The Richmond Perrine Giants from Florida. A lot of Florida teams down here. They're going to face off against the Watkins Hornets. In our second game, they have the Wenonee Tigers, another team from Hawaii. Two teams, I want to talk about that later, Josh. They're facing off against the New Haven Steelers from Connecticut. And then from New York, the West New York Bills. They're facing off against the East Bay Wolverines from California. And rounding out the Junior Pee Wee Division I, we have Virginia Beach Mustangs. They're facing the Arlington Thunder from Texas.
And I'll tell you, Arlington is one of the premier teams in the league when it comes to those young levels. So I expect that Arlington Thunder Virginia Beach game to be a fantastic one.
Well, so much talent down in Texas. A lot of talent in the Pee Wee division as well. Again, Holy Cross Knights from Texas. They're facing off against the Hartford Hurricanes from Connecticut. That game's going to be live at 1 p.m. on ESPN3. In the second spot, the East Bay Wildcats from California. They're playing the Beacon House Falcons. Should be a great game there. Beacon House showed themselves very well last season. Then in that third spot, the Glenville Titans from Ohio. They're going to be facing off against the Saddleback Valley Diablos from California. And rounding out the Pee Wee division, the Liberty City Warriors, another Florida team, facing off against the Virginia Beach Mustangs.
And you'll notice Virginia Beach here actually has a team in Junior Pee Wee, and Junior Midget. It's a fantastic program in our Mid-South region.
You know, Mid-South does such a good job cultivating their talent. Moving on to the Junior Midget Division I, our TV game, 4 p.m. It's the Glenville Titans from Ohio. They're facing off against the East Bay Wolves from California. In the second game, the Virginia Beach Mustangs from Virginia. They're facing the Gwen Cherry Bulls from Florida. First time we've seen that team in quite a while. They're facing off, in the third game, the Oak Cliff Titans, another team from Texas. We can't say how much talent is down in the state of Texas. They're facing off against the Marshall Heights Bison. And then rounding out the Junior Midgets, the Santa Margarita Titans from California. They're going to be facing off against the Dorchester Eagles from Massachusetts.
And Dorchester, it's been a little while since we've seen them, but they've been a perennially strong team in this championship. Be interesting to see what they can do with a tough first-round matchup against Santa Margarita.
You know, great program up there in Dorchester. Moving on to the Midgets, the big boys, Division I, Canyon Hills Lancers from California. They're going to face off against the Winston-Salem Indians from North Carolina. In our second game, the Detroit Northwest Lions, another team from the Great Lakes State. They're going to face off against the Northwest Raiders from Pennsylvania.
And that's last year's runner-up, so I expect big things from Northwest this year.
Well, Northwest looking to little redemption for last year. In our third game, the Almaden Mustangs, another team from California. They're going to face off against the Monument Blizzard. I hope they keep that blizzard cold weather up in Colorado. And rounding out the midget division, the Sweetwater Eagles from Florida. They're going to face off against the Hyde Park Cowboys from Massachusetts. Looking here at our broadcast schedule for Day 2, Sunday, December 2nd. In our first game, 11 a.m., the Richmond Perrine Giants facing off against the Watkins Hornets. Should be a great game, a lot of talent on the field. That's going to be followed up at 1 p.m., the Holy Cross Knights versus the Hartford Hurricanes. Just 2 games shown there, but again, every single game that's played here at ESPN Wide World of Sports Complex will have full highlights, packages, and cut-ins. Josh, it's going to be a great game, great day of football. Let's talk about these 2 games.
Yeah, and I was going to say, when we talked about how the draw was random, this is really random right here. Richmond Perrine, Watkins Hornets, 2 dominant programs in Pop Warner. Random draw has them playing each other in the first round, so somebody is going to be going right to the consolation game, so that should be a fantastic game. If you're going to watch anything that morning, make sure you're tuning into that game because that should be a really knockdown, drag-em-out game. Holy Cross and Hartford. Hartford's first time. They're a very new program to Pop Warner, but they've had a lot of success early. Expect them to do real well in this game.
New program, we talked about it last segment. New program, new team. How do you expect the bright lights of ESPN to affect those guys? You've seen them play all season long.
You know what? I think some of them can, like I said, get adjusted a little bit quicker. I think teams such as Hartford, the way they play, I think they're going to fit right in. I think it's just going to be one of those things. Again, if you don't get outside your own head, you could do very well. And I think with those kids, and from what I've seen them play and from what I've heard about some of their games, they will do excellent down here.
Well, looking forward to it again. That's December 2nd. But those aren't the only games. We got 2 more, 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. Our first game, the Glenville Titans versus the East Bay Wolves. And then rounding out the day at 6 p.m. under the lights, Canyon Hills Lancers versus the Winston-Salem Indians. But again, there's a lot of games going on that day, and every single game that we have in all these games are available on replay, so you can go back at any time on ESPN3.com and check out all the Pop Warner action.
East Bay out of Peninsula plays in that first game against Glenville. They do have 3 teams coming again. They had 3 teams come last year. They're a dominant West Coast team. Haven't broken through for a national championship in a while. I think this could be the year. And then for Midgets, you've got the Canyon Hill Lancers. They were Division II last year, moved up to Division I, taking on that challenge, playing Winston-Salem, who actually beat Virginia Beach, almost doubled up the score in that Midget game for the championships. I expect that one to be high scoring and a lot of fun.
How difficult is that, moving up from Division II to Division I? But yet they're still having the success that they had at Division II.
I think for some teams, they'll tell you it's the hardest thing they've ever done. For some teams, they'll say it was a very smooth transition. I think it's just an adjustment of play, a little bit of the coaching on that level. But we've seen a lot of teams do it and do it well. We saw Asbury Park do it just a few years ago, and they made that transition. Canyon Hills, Jared Williams, their coach, a fantastic coach. I think he'll make that transition very well.
It's going to be a great week of action right here at ESPN Wide World of Sports Complex, the 56th annual Pop Warner Super Bowl. We're going to have the post-game show each and every day after our live broadcast. Be sure and tune in. Game highlights, analysis, everything Pop Warner football right here on ESPN3. If you want anything else, go to popwarner.com. Everything you can imagine that is Pop Warner Super Bowl, popwarner.com. It's going to be an amazing week of football. I can't wait. Be sure, tune in to ESPN3 and ESPN Wide World of Sports Complex for the 2012 Pop Warner Super Bowl Championships.